The ultra-leftists over at MSNBC are freaking out. They're seeing a massive red wave on the horizon, and they're clearly starting to panic. We're going to take a look at their analysis, and if you stick with me to the very end of this video, I'll reveal why rhino snakes like Mitch McConnell are doing their best to actually thwart the red wave, but they're not going to succeed. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and insane times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before you begin, make sure to click on that link below and head on over to my special website for the Ready Project food supply. As you all know, especially since this whole pandemic insanity, we cannot wait for emergencies to happen before we respond to one. And no one, and I mean no one, makes preparing for an emergency more ridiculously easy and affordable than my friends over at the Ready Project Food Supply. Gang, they're simply the best. Their food kits last up to 25 years in storage, and they include breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and if you act right now, you're going to save 25% off a full 4-week emergency supply when you click on the link below to my special website. So whatever you do, do not wait. I've got my emergency food supply. Make sure you get yours. Click on that link below or go to getreadywithsteve.com and save 25% off your very own 4-week emergency food supply today. All right, let's dive right in here again. Take it away, MSNBC.
Question we're always looking at here in midterm election years, the president's job approval rating, and you see Joe Biden in our new poll, 42% approve, 55 disapprove. It's been a few months since the last NBC poll back in May, and the change since then, really no change. Biden's approval rating exactly the same in our poll toward the end of the summer as it was as the summer was beginning. And the key to this, of course, obviously, there usually, historically, has been a pretty strong link between a president's job approval rating and how his party does during midterm elections. The only 2 times in modern history that a White House party has actually picked up seats in midterm elections was Bill Clinton in 98. It was George W. Bush in 92. Their approval ratings were both well above 60%. Biden's, you see, sitting in that zone where presidents and their parties typically have lost seats.
All right, so you heard it yourself. The ultra-left MSNBC is admitting, as of today, that a massive red wave is coming in November that promises to crush the Democrats. Now, the key indicator in this analysis is, of course, presidential approval ratings. Elections analysts have consistently pointed to presidential approval as perhaps the single most reliable indicator for how a midterm election is going to play out. So, for example, back in August of 2010, Barack Obama had an average approval rating of 46.3%. That's the Real Clear Politics average, which aggregates all the polls together. So Obama had a 46.3% approval and a 49% disapproval. So that's a net negative of 2.7%. Obama went on to lose 63 seats in the House that November. Remember, as Gallup polling is tracked for decades, when a president is underwater, when a president is under 50% approval, we can expect to see a loss of an average of 37 seats in the House for the president's party. So Obama got crushed with a 46.3% approval, representing a negative 2.7% in relation to his disapprovals. In 2014, Obama's approval was 41.9%, disapproval was 51.9%, resulting in a net negative of 10%. As many of you know, the Republicans went on to crush the Democrats in the 2014 midterms, taking full control of the Senate. In 2018, Trump's aggregate approval was 43.6%, and his average disapproval was 52.4%, netting him a negative 8.8%. And of course, the Democrats went on to pick up over 40 seats in the House that year and take control. So where is Biden? Biden right now in August of 2022 has an average approval of 41.2% and an aggregate disapproval of 55.6%, representing a devastating negative 14.4% difference between his approval and disapproval. That is what ultra-leftists over at MSNBC are freaking out over. Now, that said, you may be wondering if that's the case, if presidential approval is the key indicator for how a midterm election is going to play itself out, and if Biden has historic lows in terms of presidential approval, then why the hell is Mitch McConnell out there freaking out about the midterms? What the heck is this guy's problem? Why is he such a wet blanket? Why is he so pessimistic about the Republicans' chances of absolutely crushing it in November? Well, there were two things going on here simultaneously. One is the very natural, normal outworking of the cyclical nature of elections, while the other is, frankly, far more insidious. Okay, let's start with the insidious part. What Mitch McConnell is doing here is he is actively attempting to minimize the Republican gains. McCarthy's doing the same thing in the House, by the way. These guys do not want a massive red wave. Rich Barris over at the People's Pundit, he's been pushing this, and some others as well. I think they're dead on. We've got to realize, as Tucker Carlson has noted, and others, MAGA forces taking over the Senate would most likely mean the end of Mitch McConnell. I mean, there's already talk of Rick Scott of Florida becoming the next Senate leader, okay? Which, while of course not perfect, would be infinitely better than Turtlehead McConnell. And it's not just the Senate. If MAGA forces overwhelmingly take over the House, that promises to skunk McCarthy. Remember, back in 2015, when John Boehner was forced to resign because he was such a pathetic rhino sellout, McCarthy made his move to become Speaker, only he had to withdraw because the Tea Party populists turned on him. They saw him as just John Boehner Part 2. And so they went with a so-called consensus speaker, which was Paul Ryan, which was its own disaster. So all of this is to say that both McConnell and McCarthy, they want a majority, but they don't want a massive MAGA red wave. So both McConnell and the Democrats are actively leaking stories to the press that these MAGA Republican candidates are all underperforming. They're not raising money, which we talked about on our video earlier today, and they probably won't win. And McConnell and the Democrats are doing this specifically to discourage donors from giving to ultra MAGA campaigns. So this is pretty sinister stuff, Game of Thrones stuff. Now, I don't think it's going to work. While both McConnell and the Dems believe that money controls politics, right? So you always look for the candidate that has the bucks. But as Dr. Oz is proving, you can't buy elections anymore. The MAGA candidates are not huge fundraisers, but they don't have to be. Their selling point is Trump's endorsement. That's worth more than any donor can give. So, for example, all the pro-impeachment Republicans that ran for re-election this year had massive war chests as compared with their MAGA-based primary challengers, and yet that didn't help any of them. The only two who won barely squeaked by. Populism does not require money for its power. And so all of this leads me then to the second thing that's going on here, and that's the cyclical dynamic in the polling, okay? Again, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, and a number of other pollsters have all noted that the July and August and even September months before an election are historical wastelands when it comes to polling Republicans. And this is because, frankly, Republicans have lives. They're not interested in talking to pollsters in the late summer months, which means that all the polling inevitably gets inordinately skewed towards the Democrats. We see this with every single election cycle. Look, I'll show it to you. In the August leading up to the Virginia governor's race last year, Terry McAuliffe was crushing Glenn Youngkin by almost 10 points, 46 to 38%. Winsome Sears was losing by 6 points. The Attorney General's race had the Republican down by 8 points as well. Now, of course, all three went on to win an absolutely devastating and humiliating defeat for the Democrats. But this happens every single cycle. But interestingly, McAuliffe's favorable ratings back then in August were around 44% at the time. So analysts like Rich Barris said, keep an eye on Youngkin. Starting around mid-September, early October, that's when Republicans get engaged again, and that's when you can expect to see Youngkin surge. And that's exactly what happened. And we're already starting to see that surge, by the way. Look at J.D. Vance. Trafalgar has him up 5 over Tim Ryan. There's no way Vance is going to lose that one. Barris has noted, too, that he has polling analysis that shows that Kerry Lake may take the Latino vote in Arizona, which is gigantic. That means that the Latino defection from the Democrats that began in southern Florida and moved to the Rio Grande Valley districts via Mayra Flores is now moving in Arizona. Again, this is amazing stuff, gang. So all that said, we can expect the polls to tighten big, right? Starting mid-September, definitely in October. It's exactly what happened with Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, and I believe it's exactly what's going to be happening in this election because it happens in every election cycle. Don't listen to Fox. Fox polling sucks. They got 2020 so wrong it was ludicrous, right? Stay focused on Trafalgar, People's Pundit, Rasmussen, and also keep in mind the elections we've had from Virginia to the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. Republicans have been absolutely crushing it. Notice, too, how many Republicans are coming out in the primaries. They're coming out in greater numbers than anything Democrats have ever seen. Republicans are outnumbering Democrats 2-1 in most of these primaries. So that promises that the electorate in November is going to be a plus Republican electorate, perhaps +4, +6 Republican. It's going to be very hard for the Democrats to win anywhere with that kind of electorate. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button, and you'll definitely want to check out my latest video on the funniest Fauci memes on the internet. It's going to absolutely make your day. So make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.